Hello, I'm so sorry. So sorry. I'm sorry. Welcome back. Roger, you're welcome. Can you hear me? Is the sound okay? Hello? Okay, so let's move on. I think everybody will come back somehow. Sorry, I had a phone call that interrupted I had a phone call, Brio. It's a phone call that I had that came in, but that's okay. So moving on, I will highlight those 7 items again. The M7 Century Dynasty, the 7 commandments which they call the extinction of native Ugandans. Number 1 is natives be denied quality education. Number 2, natives be denied quality healthcare. Number 3, natives be denied food security. Number 4, natives be denied civil service, military, police, and intelligence. Number 5, natives must suffer loss of land and property. Number 6, natives be killed, jailed, and exiled. You see why Mwanga Chivumbi is in jail. You see why Mugumya has been in jail for a long time. You see why the Machetes have been in prison for 6 years, going on 7. This all makes sense because this is how they have been running the country. This is their commandments, like the 12 commandments in the Bible. They have 7 very serious ones. The other one is that natives be impoverished. You see this very clearly. That is why no Ugandans have any path truly to success or to achieve their dreams, because this is how they behave. Okay. So I went over a few of the explained or expressed ways that they're going to perform or achieve these 7 commandments. But I would like to give you the introduction here that explains a lot and negates everything Balaam and Nammere are trying to do. Okay. The opening remark that was made by Museveni during this first meeting that happened on March 13th, 2006, the opening remark was that corruption in the M7 Century Dynasty is not criminal. This means that amongst the M7, anything they do that is considered corruption should not be treated as a crime, but as a courtesy responsibility to attain the financial wellness or our successors to downcast the poverty of their forefathers. So they're saying that any corruption or corrupt activity, that's why Sam Kutesa was able to steal all this money during COVID. That's why the wife of Muhozi stole all the money for oxygen. That is why they just loot Uganda. And even if they're caught in corruption, there is no question. Nobody bothers about it. Nobody investigates. Okay, so before this meeting that happened in March 2006, which locked down the M7 Century Dynasty. Now, remember that the M7 Century Dynasty, a century is 100 years. Okay, a century is 100 years, which means this dynasty is 100 years in the future from 2006 when they adopted it. Okay. Before that, they had what was called the Rwachitura Covenant, which was a 50-year master plan. They used to have a 50-year, but when Museveni discovered oil in Uganda in the mid-2000s, he decided that in 1993 they would amend the Rwachitura Covenant of 50 years and turn it into the M7 Century Dynasty. So that's how come they have now moved it from 50 to 10 years. I know some people say the 50-year master plan, but the 50-year master plan was the previous one, the Ratstura Covenant. After oil discovery in Uganda in the 2000s, mid-2000s, they sat down and said, how do we do this? How do we continue with this? This country seems to be wealthier than we thought it was. How do we continue to loot? Then they extended it and made it the what? The M7 Century Dynasty. So this is a pretty new document in establishment for them. Somebody's saying, Lukoma, you don't know Uganda. I try. I could, but I'm not that good in Uganda. I'm not that good. I'll try one day, okay? And you'll laugh your heads off. Okay, so I wanted to clearly mark, especially after the 7 commandments, they talk about corruption, that it is no crime when it's done by them. That is why Anita Among is under house arrest while Sam Kutesa is free. Okay, after looting all that money and stealing all this stuff, Sam Kutesa is free. So I did go through a few of those items. If I do go through this now, we're going to be here for a few. If I go over everything, we'll be here for a long time. So why don't I catch up on, maybe I could, okay, I could do this fast, okay? Because I'd like everything to be tied in one video. All right, let's do this. So when oil was discovered, then they extended it and made it the M7 Century Dynasty, which is supposed to last 100 years. All right. So now I'm going into the meat. I'm going to go over this because I see a new crowd. Some people are new, but I'll make sure I just capture everything within this time. Okay. I'm going to read item by item as they go into detail about the 7 commandments and how they'll practice them. Number 1, the cooperation with Rwanda will be improved and downplay all Chisangani conflicts. That is something else. Chisangani, I'm not sure about that. I can research and bring it back. But that's number 1. They would increase cooperation with Rwanda. That is why Rwanda gets everything, including Ugandan coffee. It's branded and rebranded to be called Rwandeese coffee when it comes to America and places like this. That is why the cancer treatment machine that was bought by taxpayers in Uganda goes to Rwanda. That is why when they do steal gold from Karamoja and all these places, it's all taken to Rwanda to be processed and sold over there. Okay? They will. Number 2, listen to this, and this is why I do not pay attention to this Besigye nonsense, okay? I want you to at least hear me out because of this, that this Besigye nonsense they can do for as long as they want, but Ugandans come off of it, follow what we need to be following, follow National Unity Platform, follow our president. I know he's diplomatic, but when we find documents like this, it just really, it doesn't make sense to me, okay? So number 2, they say, make peace with Besigye as long as Winnie Byanyima forever lives outside of Uganda. Winnie Byanyima has not lived in Uganda for a long time. It is no wonder when Besigye is collapsing or hanging out in court, Byanyima has no word to say, nothing to say, okay? Number 3, increase the number of districts to decrease political fatigue at the central government, as well as expand parliament. You guys have seen that Parliament of Uganda has increased from like 200 or 150 MPs. I think we're now at 500 MPs. All these things, as I mentioned them, picture where they fit, because they truly fit everywhere. Okay? Number 4, bring Amama Mbabazi, an immigrant Hutu, closer to the piloting deck for the coup he has successfully foiled. So, Amama Mbabazi, you recall, at some point ran for office or presidency. Amama Mbabazi is apparently some sort of Hutu that found himself in Uganda somehow. So they relate with him and they know each other. Somehow they respect each other. That is why when Amama Mbabazi took all the money from NSSF, he was not touched, because he's one of them. Okay? Hand over regular civilian security to Kai Kaihura and use it to control Besigye not to go overboard. Okay? So, hand over civilian security. That's why all security companies, somehow overseen by Salim Saleh, I believe, owns a lot of them, but Kale Kaihura ran them for a while. Okay? Yes, Brio, that's absolutely true. Shift power from mainstream institutions to projects, authorities and commissions such as which should be run by biological allies or all trusted social network of the Bahima dynasty. So this is why everything is privatized to individuals of Bahima descent to run all these areas or social activities that are meant to be government funded or government activities for the sake of the people of Uganda. All the mainstream institutions shift power from all mainstream institutions. So even if, let's say, the Ministry of Agriculture exists, the Ministry of Agriculture does not necessarily perform as a ministry because all power is given to individuals. That is why at Mulago Government Hospital, when after you go and see somebody, a doctor in Mulago, you are discharged and you have to buy medicine from the doctor, the Rwandese doctor who owns a pharmacy, down the street. That is the logic. That in the government hospital, you will not get everything you need there. You'll get something, but power or the money has to follow them and go. You have to go and buy from them. Shift. Okay. The next one, Presidential Guard Brigade should form a special unit to monitor wealth inflow and outflow of individuals who do not belong to the Bahima dynasty. So the Presidential Guard Brigade, I presume, would be the SFCs. They have a unit that follow or track workflow, wealth flow, and outflow of individuals who do not belong. So any wealthy Ugandan or any Ugandan that's doing well is a target because they want to identify what are you doing, what do you have. It is no wonder people like WBS failed eventually. The prominent gentlemen and women in Uganda, in Kampala, who had successful businesses, you no longer hear about them because somehow they will fail you in form of taxes. I think WBS failed. Wavamuno failed because he was all of a sudden surprised with a huge tax bill that he did not owe, but because they wanted to put him in a corner until he closed his TV station. And then came the Natasha Broadcasting Services and things like that. Number 8, block and destroy any educated rich Muganda, Northerner, Easterner. Boni Katatumba should be categorized equally for his monarchical ideas. So block each educated. Remember during Obote's times and the previous governments, there were a lot of educated Ugandans. I mean, Ugandans would go abroad and represent the country in ways that you'd be like, I am proud to be Ugandan. You don't see that today. The reason you don't see that today is because it is their policy to stifle any educated, powerful Ugandan, northern, a Muganda, a northerner, or an easterner. The reason why they don't do that with Ankole very much is because they're foiled in Ankole, that region. Western region, they are foiled in there because they have certain physical similarities and they will help us hate them. A lot of people think, oh, the Banyankole are good, the Banyankole own everything, the Westerners are doing good. No, they're not. It is just that these people have gotten in their communities because the languages are similar. They may look similar. It is easy to confuse a Munyankole from Nyarwanda or Mnyarwanda from Munyankole compared to the rest of Uganda. So in their efforts to hide behind the Western Uganda, they are now focusing their guns towards any successful or educated Muganda, Northerner, Easterner, in the region. They must be blocked from any form of success. Okay. Number 9, the Bahima membership should control all resources in the country. All the resources in Uganda, gold, oil, I'm talking whatever you can think of, all resources in Uganda is supposed to be controlled by members of the Bahima dynasty, not Ugandans. That is why you find like TVs owned by them. You find, I think UBC is the most bogus TV. It's probably run by them. You can look at Hima or cement factories owned by them. You look at oil, they are the ones running them. If they're not running them as individuals, they have proxies who work under different names, but they own most of the shares in those companies. Okay. Number 10, train all our children using the most elite education there is in the world. So it makes sense that all their children go to private schools or certain schools that are stipulated to be of higher standard, and leave Ugandan children to have UCE and UACE and UPE. Okay, those schools that do not perform, because Ugandans already, they're stifled, they can't afford those expensive schools. That means that only they will be able to afford the schools with the standards which they establish in them, not regular Ugandans. Only a few Ugandans who are like, in politics, they're in bribery, helping them with certain activities and missions they're trying to achieve, that can afford those schools. But a regular Ugandan, like let's say a farmer or somebody who has even a public service job, cannot afford school fees of 3 million every year, every term. Okay, so it is by design to cause a disparity between Ugandan children and these Banyarwanda children. Number 11, uphold this current curriculum in all government and private schools for the rest of Uganda to widen the gap between BCD and all the rest. So, as I mentioned, the gap continues to create when the Ugandans continue with the old curriculum, while the private schools have different curriculums that are setting the world's, they're on the world stage, like AI being taught in certain schools that only they can afford. A Ugandan student in Koboko has no access to a computer, will never know what AI is until they get their own cell phone. And if it is a smartphone, then sure, they'll be in and if not, then that's, something for the late future. Number 12, train members of the BCD to professionalize oil exploration and trade. There are several Banyarwanda abroad studying oil. Several. Those of you going to colleges, you'll even meet them. Many of them are learning how to explore oil, how to manage oil, how to extract gold, how to refine gold. All these important degrees and careers are only given to Rwandese children. Ugandans have actually been forbidden to joining. I don't care if you did PCB and you have 24 points. You are not allowed to go and study medicine. Whatever your degree is, even if it obviously leads or feeds into joining a career school for that purpose, because you're qualified, you are somehow going to be sent into education so that you can teach their children about how, with your knowledge, instead of you exploring your own career, going into surgery or medicine or mineral exploration, because they want to keep that for themselves. Number 13, acquire all resourceful land in the country and tighten the grip on all resources in the country. It is no wonder people of Bunyoro, where there was oil discovered, they were pushed out of that land and put into a camp. A community in Bunyoro where this dumb Prime Minister Nabanja is from have been in camps for over 10 years. 10 years, because there was oil discovered. The same thing, the reason why Apaa land is being fought over so much is because of the oil that is under that soil. Apaa land issue, where Moses Ali was at dead center causing commotion, where Salim Saleh has bought a lot of land. Amuru land has a lot of oil underneath. That's where Salim Saleh's sister has bought some sort of sugar factory. She claims she's going to set up a sugar factory. You can see how instead of an Acholi person from the region or a Munyoro from the region to become or be the one in charge of exploring this oil, or even the community to get some benefits, you will see that the community is excommunicated and these Banyarwanda are brought in and buy up that land and control it. They'll put a fence overnight. In Gulu, there's an area close to the Gulu University. Overnight, the fence had already sealed off. As soon as they discover something during their exploration on a piece of land, they will figure out a way to eliminate the residents of that area. Whether it's these days, the common thing is elephants are being released into the community and they go and plow down homes and people are running away. Kapchorwa, Sebei land. People have been in camps for years because they discovered some wealth in that region. I understand there's a game park around that area that people used to live close by because they want to secure the area and secure it for their own tourist purposes. They have eventually sent these people in camps. They've been in camps for over 20 years in Sebeiland. In Bunyoro, over 15 years now. Children have been born there. People have died. Like lacking burial ground type movement. Same thing happened in Acholi. Many, over 20 years, the LRA war existed. These are all from this template. From this evil template, they've executed all these things and continue to execute. As I read this, continue to, think ahead, think back to what you might have seen or remember, and it will all make sense. This is why Uganda is in this position. Everything is on here, okay? Number 14, do not allow any politician from the opposition to surpass the opposition preserved for Besigye. Oh God. From now on, if I post anything anti-Besigye and you attack me, I am blocking you. Okay? Because number 14 on the Bahima Dynasty, Century Dynasty document, template, they say, do not allow any politician from the opposition to surpass the opposition preserved for Besigye. That means this Besigye who is in prison or brought to court or collapses or whatever he does, Besigye is Museveni's accomplice. Besigye is an accomplice. Besigye was meant to maintain Museveni looking like a democracy alongside him and him looking like an opposition. I respect the president, Kyagulanyi Ssentamu, but on Besigye, oh why? Anyway, number 15. They are not supposed to intermarry. They are supposed to, okay, here, I'll read it as it is. Do not intermarry, hate the northerners, easterners, and centrals. Never at any time mix with Muslims. Detest them like fecal matter, okay? So, in their bylaws, they say they should never intermarry. Even if you see, I understand, when a Mnyarwanda marries a Ugandan, it is unclear who the kids are for. Especially, it's rare to see, it happens. People like Todwong, they have married Banyarwanda women, okay? It is said that sometimes, and a lot of times, those kids are not the Todwong's kids. Those kids are for other people who they only choose to associate with their people. So if he goes on to bring like a maid from their home, or they say, I brought my brother to come and stay with us, or my uncle needs a place to stay, they are really bringing their mate or their partner. So those who have intermarried, check yourselves. It is clear that sometimes some people have gone into DNA secretly and have found out that, the things are not adding up. Okay, so they also say never mix. Museveni hates Muslims with something. It's a special kind of hatred against Muslims. I understand in the detention centers or the safe houses where they have lots of prisoners, when it comes time to pray for the Muslim prayers, the 5 times a day, almost half the prison turns to where they need to turn and begins to pray. And it looks like a mosque of prisoners. That is why Sheikh Chivu, the one who was shot in front of his children. Museveni dehumanizes Muslims all the time. In fact, when Muslims end their fast and the leaders of the Muslim community go to State House to break the fast, that big event that Museveni does, apparently he serves them pork. If not pork, he goes worse into fecal matter and adds it in there. These guys are crazy. Okay? So apparently they're advised not to intermarry. They're supposed to hate northerners, easterners, and central people, and they're never to mix with Muslims. Never. This is not even, I've never seen a Mnyarwanda who has married a Muslim. Think about it. Have you ever? I have never. So maybe. And they say detest Muslims like fecal matter. Okay? Number 16, all public property belongs to Banyarwanda, to this Bahima Central Dynasty. They're saying all public property belongs to them. That is why all ministries in Uganda actually rent. Ministry of Gender is in an office or office floor that they rent. Part of parliament is rented. Think about any ministry in Uganda and where they're housed or where they're domiciled, where they perform their activities. Any public service is rented. They pay rent directly to the pockets of this Bahima. They don't actually, by now, those buildings are supposed to be owned. That's why all the embassies all over the world that were built and bought, yes, Nalongo, thank you, Sheikh Chilevu was shot and killed in front of his wives and children. Because Museveni he detests Muslims because Muslims, by tradition, marry more than one wife, 4 wives, okay? Muslims in general have more than maybe 5, 10 kids, or more than that. Some people have 50 kids. Museveni hates that because it creates deeper roots and it spreads community. And if he tries to attack one of them, usually there's several others, and he can't finish. If he wants to finish a mission, like if he comes to a Christian family, there's father, mother, couple kids, and they're done. But in this case, you never know, because when you have a Muslim family, they have 4 wives, maybe some exes. I mean, you're talking 50 kids, maybe more. Talk about grandkids, and on and on and on. Museveni hates Muslims because of their nature and the possibility that he could never, and maybe if they came together, they could overthrow him. That is why he says the owner of ADF, who attacks some part of what is that? Kisoro Kasese. He always complains about ADF and ADF being led by Muslims. Anything that's attached to a certain type of crime that he wants to, and you take it off him and place it on somebody else, he places it on a Muslim. Look clearly, how many Muslims have been accused of what? Even the people who they say murdered Kagezi. Kagezi, who was murdered by Janet, they say. Kagezi, the murderers of Kagezi are presumed to be Muslims, are appointed by Museveni to be Muslims. So think about how many Muslims have been accused of what crime. And it comes from here, from this document, okay? So I talked about all public property belongs to Bahima dynasty. That is why, and later on I have a list of those. Like I said, I have 7 pages. I hope I can get through all of this. All of the assets in Uganda that used to be government assets have all been privatized and are owned personally by individuals. All Banyarwanda, not Ugandans. If a Muganda owns something, they are a proxy of this family, of the Banyarwanda. Okay? Number 17, craft all means available at any cost to maintain power in the circles of the dynasty. If you notice in the past election of members of parliament and on, many of them have been descendants of Banyarwanda, their children, relatives, and friends only. It is why they tried to make the guy from... yes, Jonah, that's excellent. My friend Jonah is going to translate this into Luganda. Let's make this go viral. I'm going to come back in a trolley someday, maybe tomorrow, and translate the whole thing so that it's out there for everybody. If you know a language that you want to translate this document to, please DM me and I'll share it with you as well. Let's make this thing go everywhere. Everywhere. Okay. I was talking about crafting all means available at any cost to maintain power in the circles of the dynasty. I talked about leadership in all. That's why even an RDC in your village is a person, a foreigner who does not speak the language. I mean, that's why the LC elections have been an embarrassment for them, because they were instilling at the grassroots level their people. That is why mobile money is now going to become only for Banyarwanda. It makes sense because Sam Kutesa owns all of mobile money business in Uganda. All those little stations. That means if you're Ugandan and you're trying to get a mobile money station, they're going to do this to you and you may not even get it. So that they maintain all of the wealth and all of the power amongst the Banyarwanda. Okay? Number 18. The Bahima Century Dynasty should be encircled by Banyankole, then Bahoro, then Vachiga, Tutsi, Hutu. The rest should be workers, drones, slaves, and all Muslims invisible and outcasts. So, in this point, they're saying that they should foil themselves to look like Banyankole. They are going to be amongst Banyankole, within Banya. It is no wonder that the kingdom of Ankole does not exist, because Museveni cannot let anybody else exist with any sort of power. That is why he tries so hard to take down the Kabaka of Buganda, because he wants to remain, like he calls himself, the modern king. He wants to be the only leader who is respected and hailed by people. But we have figured him out, and that's no longer the case, okay? That is why the Banyankole king does not exist. That is why the Batoro, okay? I don't know if, does Bahoro mean Batoro? Is it the same thing? That is why the king of Toro, the father, was killed by Museveni, and he installed this young man so he can easily manipulate him and help rewrite history for him, to benefit him. And they say the rest of Ugandans should be workers, drones, and slaves. And then most importantly, he says all Muslims should become invisible and outcasts. Number 19. Number 19 says shift some of the investments from the West to China, Russia, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and Kuwait. This makes sense because around the 2000s is when the Western world started to figure out Museveni, like, wait a minute, who is this guy anyway? What happened where? That's when the LRA war started to look a little different, and questions started to arise, and people wondering, are you sure? Is this still the same? Thank you, Elizabeth. Elizabeth says the Bahoro are different from Batoro. I'm trying to think that, I think then the Bahoro are within the region of Banyankole and Bachiga area, the Chigezi area. I'm thinking so. I could be wrong. I've actually never been to Western Uganda, but I love it. It's beautiful. All Uganda should be free for all of us to just travel and go everywhere, okay? But you're welcome, Elizabeth. Number 20, the M7 Century Dynasty should grow to a level of controlling. Oh, I didn't describe what they meant by shifting some of the investments from the West to China, Russia, Saudi. So in the recent history until currently, you have noticed that Museveni is going more to the Middle East, right? He's dealing more with Russia. He's dealing more with Kuwait and Jordan, because they're trying to move their wealth from Europe and the Americas, so that they try to secure it and save it. Because since certain, sanctions started to clamp down, like on Kaihura, now Rwanda, several generals are sanctioned. They're worried about that coming close to their heart and to their family. So they've tried to move stuff away from there into other areas. Okay. Number 20, the Bahima should grow to a level of controlling a number of factors in the entire Great Lakes region. So in this, they mean that it is no wonder I talked about the embassies of Kenya, the U.S. embassies in Kenya and Tanzania that were bombed by Museveni, and the Ofumbi building that was bombed by Museveni, because he's trying to cast his Bahima control into other regions. That's why Kenya now, this new president, is more like Museveni, because it is likely, I understand he has descent from the Bahima. In fact, Museveni has his own son, who they call Uhuru, in Kenya, who is being shaped to take over leadership. Oh, okay. Somebody sent me something here. Andrew Mwenda's grandson. Okay. Roger, thank you so much. Thank you. I will. And so it makes sense that that's happening too. I wanted to highlight this, that in the Great Lakes region, they're trying to capture different areas. Obviously, Rwanda is already captured. It is the reason why recently they've come up with an idea of creating a one country, which includes Rwanda, Uganda, and South Sudan. It is no wonder Museveni is in South Sudan, and Museveni has killed tons of people in South Sudan. That is why during the investigation, they found that ammunition that was sent to go to Somalia was found in Sudan, and having been used to kill a lot of Sudanese people in Sudan. So in Burundi, the same thing, the same cry. M23 is owned by Museveni. They have committed several atrocities because they're trying to take control of all these regions all together somehow. So it makes sense why all these things happen. The next point, 21, to advance the wealth of the M7 Century Dynasty by 15% of the to advance the wealth of BCD, 15% of the national budget should directly be drawn and distributed among the members of the M7, regardless of their job position or age group, as long as they're 18 years of age. Every year, Kasaija or something passes, that gentleman who passes the budget, who reads the budget, they allocate 15% to the M7 Century Dynasty every single year. Every year. 15% goes directly to them. Okay? Without question. I have another number that's going to put you in awe. So this makes sense because I'm sure this budget never fails. That is why you see a local moneylender, a stupid-looking guy somewhere in the village in Gulu, somewhere in the village in Pade, has all the money to offer, but has never stepped in a classroom, doesn't look like he runs any business. All of a sudden, he has money to lend. He has like a small phone on him, and every time people need money, they run to him. They know that this guy always has money. People go in with their IDs, surrender their land, surrender whatever asset, but these guys are readily available with money to loan. Purposely, because if they loan you, they know you're going to fail because you have no means of gaining any financial stability. You will eventually lose the asset you give them as collateral for you to be able to succeed. Yes, Jonah. Okay, I'm not sure about that either. Okay, I'm watching some chats, but don't worry about that. It won't interrupt anything. Sometimes I watch because it may add to what I'm saying, and then I can pick it up and add it. So regardless, as long as they're 18 years old, that 15% that they take off the Uganda budget goes directly into their wallets. They probably have mobile money system that's set up. When that money pours into the account, it is immediately shared in mass communication to everybody. Here is the biggest scare. 50% of the national budget should be drawn into the M7 membership through contracts, projects, salaries, and supplies. So besides 15% going directly into their pockets, 50% of the Ugandan budget goes to contracts which are theirs. Remember, some of these funds are allocated to like Ministry of Gender, Ministry of Transportation, Ministry of Roads. In those ministries, when it's time to bid, because in the ministry is their person and can recognize who is applying, when the time comes that the ministry gets the money, they then go to their computers or whatever, submit proposals or apply for contracts, and they are awarded, and not Ugandans awarded these contracts. So if there's a project, let's say a road construction project, the money goes into the ministry, right? Who is this? General Katumba Wamala. People like General Katumba Wamala will not know that these things happen in the background because he's all being high about being a minister. The people who actually move the ministry are the Banyarwanda who are stuck in offices operating the ministry because they're the ones who receive the contracts and pass these things on. You, a Ugandan, no matter how good you have it, like the gentleman who created that COVID-19 medication. You do remember the Ugandan guy? All that did not make any headway because they did not want to elevate him, because then it dims the light of this Banyarwanda. So 50% of the Ugandan budget is drawn into the M7 membership through contracts, projects, salaries. That is why they have projects like Pineti or projects like people to teach Uganda how to drink coffee, some sort of stupidity like that. Those types of projects haul in a lot of money and there's no results. But remember this, they said in their introduction, corruption is not a crime amongst them. So no matter what they do with the money, you should never question because they'll never throw out their person. That is why Katunji, who has been demanded by the United States for extradition on questions on arms embargoes and activities like the drug trafficking and things like that, he was not handed over to the United States because they protect their own. Had it been Anita Among that they wanted to go to the ICC, Museveni would just pick up and give her a free flight to ICC to go and answer whatever the case might be. You know? So only certain people are punished in Uganda for corruption. All this nonsense Namere and Balam are doing, they're just performing some sort of drama. They're really, really only hurting Ugandans, if any, and not touching the real criminals, which is this family, the Banyarwanda. Okay, number 23. It is in the mandate of the state of Uganda to protect every member of the Bahima from any sort of crime, be it minor, major, capital, or international. This is where Katunji falls. Number 23 states that it is their mandate. It's the mandate of the state of Uganda. State of Uganda, which is Museveni, who is the same chairman of the Bahima Central Dynasty. It doubles as the same thing. It's not even a double. It's the same person running both organizations. Running Uganda as a presidency, it is possible that this agreement exists because all he has to do is turn left and sign, and then turn right and prepare the document. Okay? Whatever befits them, they have the guy at the top, and down here, it's easy to solve. So it's no wonder there's a mandate that's written and signed and in place that any Muhima, any Bahima who are caught in who commit a crime, major, minor, capital, international, must be protected. They will not let their people go. Musa, I'll come to that. Okay? They should keep clean by using proxies to do dirty work. So let's say Sam Kutesa, who is the prominent thief of Uganda, used a Ugandan as part of, Sam Kutesa owns Uganda Airlines. So let's say when you say pride of Uganda, Uganda Airlines, so on and so, you are promoting Sam Kutesa. Uganda Airlines is not a Ugandan airline. The name is only to embellish his Sam Kutesa's business, which I'll get to eventually. So when you say fly Uganda, be proud of Uganda, Uganda Airlines is not Ugandan. It is owned by Sam Kutesa privately as an entity. Okay? So I mentioned they should use proxies. Yes, that is why lots of their businesses have other names of Ugandans and not their own personal names. In fact, if you have to go to an office that you are pretty sure is a venture that's owned by a certain Munyarwanda, you will not find that individual there. All the high-rises in Uganda, all of the major business activities are run by this own Bahima family, not a Ugandan. If a Ugandan is involved, like they said, he's just a slave, it's somebody to send here and there, and it's somebody to get caught in the web. If something goes wrong, they'll hand over this Ugandan. Okay? Number 24, all military power should be under the control of the Bahima dynasty, mainly the president. All military power. It is no wonder Museveni commands every activity in Uganda to be done or committed by the military. Okay? You see militarization in road construction, military in tourism, you see the military in schools, you see the military in the hospitals, you see the military. They control basically everything. But Museveni controls the military, and he and his own word goes no matter what. So even if the military is there to serve the community, it is not by their own wish. It is what Museveni says that goes. If Museveni said, which he did sign an agreement to send Ugandans to Gaza, only Ugandan military people will be sent to Gaza to die. When Museveni commands the military to go to Sudan in a war zone, they have no say. So it just goes to say that when Museveni orders the military to go and attack Bobi Wine or His Excellency's home or go pitch camp there, they have to go. Even though their heart says different, they are forced. Eluelu was asked to go and massacre the kingdom of Kasese on orders from Museveni to go and kill the people of Rwenzururu because the king had not agreed to, the king had not agreed to bow down to Museveni. He decided to go and show the king what he means by being Museveni. They went into the kingdom and slaughtered over 300 people dead in cold blood mothers and children and men, innocent commoners that just exist freely and happily in a community. They went ahead and slaughtered a bunch of them. A bunch of them. For no reason. Elwelo could never tell you what these guys actually did. But because the orders came from above, military courts, that is why it is incorporated in the constitution that the military can try people. The crew that followed Mwanga Chivumbi were a part of the military. Mwanga Chivumbi, had he committed a crime, the police are supposed to handle him. The police did not. The police made a traffic stop, and a few minutes later, the military showed up in plain clothes, picked him up, and took him to a detention center. Mwanga Chivumbi, if he's a Ugandan, he's an elite. He could be called to go and answer to questions. Despite the military coming to his home and shooting over 20 people dead, Mwanga Chivumbi was then arrested by Museveni again and tortured. So this makes sense because it's no wonder that the military does everything Museveni says go and do. They cannot think for themselves. So those of you who are here who know people in the military, let them know that the mission that they are acting on is not theirs. It's not for Uganda. It's for the satisfaction of the Rwandeese dynasty, which excludes them, which makes them a target for elimination at any time that they wish. So even if, let's say, you are a high performer like Elwelu, where is he now? If Museveni says somebody go and kill Elwelu, he has no escape. He's not one of them. He's not. The guys who went to Gulu, those Banyarwanda who were in Gulu with long sticks, that were caught. There's a photo that went around where there was another military guy who was praising this guy for what he did. Just the fact that he was exposed, the Musevenis decided to round up those 8 men who acted on Kyagulanyi Ssentamu while in Gulu, to send them back to Rwanda to safety. To safety. These are the guys who are caught dead in the daytime, beating up people in Gulu. But when we made them popular, they rounded them up and sent them to Rwanda to become SFCs. All this makes sense. I have one more point on this. Any potential opposition should be restrained by death. I have to make you, that's the last point on this. I'm going to share this. It says, any potential opposition should be restrained by death. Now, I want to explain that. Do you understand why Besigye is free? Do you see why all the other opposition is free? Does it make sense that the other opposition are fake? Does it now make sense that Kyagulanyi Ssentamu, His Excellency, is truly the only opposition in Uganda? Does it make sense now? Does it make sense now? I want you to leave here knowing that for a long time, what we know of Uganda and what's happening in Uganda is truly not what it is. Uganda has been run by this document. By all these, you can see it clearly in every aspect of life in Uganda. All these points exist. The fact that they will not allow an opposition to exist, to surpass Besigye, that means that Besigye is theirs. Besigye will not get killed. But if it was Bobby Wine in jail, he would not be there this long, like Besigye has been. I don't care if it's coming to 2 years or 20. They can hold Besigye for 100 years, and I would care less. Because Besigye is their project. The real reason why they wanted Kyagulanyi Ssentamu in hand and dead is because Kyagulanyi is a true opposition. It is in their bylaws. Number 25, which is the last point on this document, it says, any potential, okay? Let's say people like Mpuga, PPF, or whatever that is. Mpuga was real, potentially real. Mpuga by now would not be free. Mpuga would have been somewhere in the cells. Mpuga would have been long gone. First of all, he's a Ugandan. He's a Ugandan. And if he's a Ugandan, if it is truly a true opposition, why is he still here? This document disqualifies every single parading opposition as useless and a proxy to the Museveni government. They are partners. They are designer opposition. That is why he wants Kyagulanyi Ssentamu dead. And that is why Kyagulanyi Ssentamu left Uganda, because of their bylaws and their 7 commandments and the details with which they run this country. I'm going to go over the leadership. It's not very big, but I'm going to go through it quickly so you know which people are in the leadership of this Bachwezi dynasty. And you can relate to the people who you know who are in the community so that you distance yourself, or if you know anybody who's in association with them, you can let them know to watch their whatever. They watch themselves. So in the leadership of this organization, from the top, Chairman Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, Vice Chairman Sam Kahamba Kutesa. That is why he's untouchable. That is why he has stolen all COVID feed, money, medication, and all of that, and he's untouchable. General Secretary Janet Kataha. Assistant General Secretary. Remember, this was made in 2006. That is why some people who are late are still here. Some people who are dead, like Janet Museveni. General Secretary Janet Museveni. Assistant General Secretary Youth is called Molly Asimwe. Secretary of Internal Affairs Caleb Akandwanaho. Secretary of External Affairs is Violet Kajubiri. Secretary of Children's Affairs is Natasha Museveni. Secretary of Social Affairs is Chris Kajara. Secretary of Security is Eli Tumwine. That is why the late are still here, because this document was prepared at that time. Deputy Secretary of Security is Sabiti Muzei. Now it makes sense that Eli Tumwine used to say things that we shoot you and kill you. Remember that? He had the authority by positioning. You see that? He's a Secretary of Security. That is why he had the power to talk about killing people, because he felt like that is his office, security of them, not security for Ugandans. Secretary of Investment, Youth Wing, Odrek Rabwogo, Youth Wing, oh boy. Deputy Secretary, I said Sabiti Muzei. Secretary of Investment, Corporate Wing, Patrick Bitature. Secretary for Overseas Investment, John Kazora. This Kazora must be where the Kazora guys stem from. You know the Kazora who's in public media. I think was he in Big Brother? No, he wasn't Big Brother. I think this is the Kazora who complained that that the government spoke about COVID way too loud, that it prevented him from going out to go and from leaving the country to go to Europe to make his tourist advertisements or whatever. Secretary of Local Investment is Toyota. Local Investment in Uganda, the secretary is Toyota. Toyota is the son of Museveni. Secretary of Political Affairs is George Kashakamba. I don't know who that one is. The head of Membership Committee is Molly Kamukama. The head of Welfare is Alan Kajina. The deputy head of Welfare is Seth Rukurungu. Head of Local Contracts is John Nasasira. Head of Committee for Social Responsibilities and Philanthropy is Kainerugaba Muhozi. Head of Innovations is George William Nkiriho. Head of Quest Ideas is Francis Turiamwijuka. Head of Supervisory Committee is Chris Rakakamba. Head of Education and Culture, Professor K. Turiamuhika. Oh, yes, somebody said Toyota is Museveni's brother. Makes sense. I stand corrected there. All right. I'm now going to move into business monopolies. This is where they own 100% of assets or businesses by category. Okay? So I'm going into business monopolies. All government contracts are owned by the Bahima Century Dynasty. All of them. All contracts in Uganda pay into the Bahima Century Dynasty because they hold and own all of them. All supplies to Operation Wealth Creation. All supplies. What I mean by this is ASP showed us a video of a gentleman, a son of Museveni, who owns a rice storage or a rice store, a major rice store somewhere in I think in Uganda and Kenya. Now, when Salim Saleh is given wealth creation as a project, okay, this is where projects come in that they all own. Salim Saleh, who is Museveni's brother, is the owner or the operator of wealth creation. All the resources that he buys to supposedly supply to Ugandans in form of like the little goats that they give people in the village, the rice, the bag of rice or some flour that they give people sometimes, all those suppliers are Rwandese people. Salim Saleh is the owner or the manager of wealth creation, right? But all supplies for wealth creation, which is likely given to Rwandese people in Uganda, again, comes into supply from just Rwandese people. So if you're Ugandan and you grow coffee, they'll buy it from you in peanuts and then go and sell it to Salim Saleh in a nice, a certain amount. Then Salim Saleh will redistribute it as seeds or whatever here and there. That's not a very good example. Let's say they say we grow simsim in northern Uganda. You harvest it and they buy it for wealth creation or whatever. Once they buy it from you and are going to export it, they buy it for peanuts, they rebrand, whatever they do with it, and sell expensively. Now, supplies for wealth creation to me is much like seeds, little animals that they give people when they promise, some goats here, some this, because wealth creation is like a pig here, a goat here, a chicken here. That is what they believe to keep Ugandans begging for crumbs, so that we are used to a few crumbs and not too much. Okay, they control all of this. All gorilla tracking permits are owned by Museveni. All of them. You do know that some gorillas were taken from Uganda. In fact, Ugandan wildlife is being shipped to Rwanda so that in Rwanda they try to grow some sort of tourist, to make it a tourist destination. You see that? Somebody tells me here, Simon, thank you. The rice processing plant in Kampala, in Kapeka, was built by Salim Saleh for his son. Salim Saleh's son owns the rice processing plant in Kapeka. That means rice growers locally will sell to them in peanuts and then have them refine it and sell it back to the community of Ugandans in markets for astronomical amounts that they can't afford. So either you can afford or sell off your land to the local mobile money, who is one of them, and go and try to which won't last you long, or you just figure out another way to live. Find out another way that you can eat something. It's crazy. Next, all milk exportation is owned by Museveni. All fish exportation is owned by Museveni. I understand milk that's produced by the Banyankole locally in Western Uganda is bought for like 200 shillings a cup. 200 shillings. But when you go and buy milk in Kampala, it's over 1,600,000 Uganda shillings. Because Museveni buys it cheaply from the farmers to keep them broke, to maintain them at below poverty level. But when he goes to sell it outside in the markets or makes cheese or whatever, they make a killing from it. All fishing in Uganda has been forbidden, and in fact forbidden to Ugandans, and is only allowed, and now it's being guarded by the military. I tell you how useless the military's job has become. They guard the lakes like Lake Victoria, Lake Albert, where people normally went to fish, because all fishing, because the Chinese like the tilapia that comes, the fresh fish from Uganda, fresh lake water fish that comes from Uganda is highly, they believe it has some sort of potency in certain medicines or healing, because tilapia is one of the best, the skin of tilapia is one of the best healing remedies for burns. When somebody is burned, if you put a skin of fish on them, they could heal just from having that placed on them. Okay, so Uganda has tilapia in insane amounts. Okay, one other fish that we have a lot is the silverfish, the tiny fish, mukene. Mukene is highly nutritious. That a lot of people from China, and especially Chinese and that area, they have taken interest particularly to the fish that is born and grown in Uganda, like the mukenes, like the tilapias. Some of the fish that we have is nowhere else in the world. And so Museveni has now taken it upon himself to be the sole owner of fish exportation in Uganda, meaning Ugandans are not supposed to eat fish. All fish is harvested, packaged, and exported. All flower exportation belongs to Museveni. All flowers. I understand in Tungamu there is square miles of flower beds. Local Ugandans are not allowed to export flowers because they want to, because they're forbidden by these people. Only Museveni is allowed to export flowers. Yes, Mansa, I'll send it to you. I'll send that document to you. Anybody who would like a copy of this document, please DM me. It's easier for me to send it on my computer than to do it on my phone because it's, yeah, it's it could be heavy for my phone. All railway, dams, and pipelines are owned by Museveni. All railways, dams. So Jinja Falls Dam, Owen Falls Dam, Karuma, all those are owned privately by Museveni. It is no wonder we generate electricity in Jinja, but we have load shedding almost daily in Uganda. And yet in Rwanda, they do not miss a day without electricity. All electricity produced in Kampala, in Jinja, at the Owen Falls Dam, is sent directly to Rwanda. And after this, I'll show you how Museveni takes ownership of the assets that produce power and who owns the power in Uganda. And why in Uganda you cannot sustainably own a refrigerator if you don't have a generator with alternative power or any other alternative power source. Okay. Road construction is owned by Museveni and Janet. Umeme is owned by Museveni, Janet, and Muhozi. This is why we don't have electricity in Uganda. Yes, Matova, I'll send it to you. DM me later, whoever needs the document. Gold mining in Uganda is owned by Museveni and Janet. It now makes sense why Janet was the Minister of Karamoja Affairs for several years. I think she did 2 or 3 terms. It is the reason why she was the Minister of Karamoja, so she can control mining and exportation of the gold and uranium that is in Karamoja region that they've been sending to Rwanda for years. Tiles manufacturing is owned by Museveni and Salim Saleh. Uganda Airlines, I talked about this earlier. It is privately owned by Sam Kutesa, and it is in the law, meaning Museveni being the head of the Bachwezi dynasty, or Bahima dynasty, and being the president of Uganda currently, or at the time, it makes sense that Museveni will turn around and sign a document of inclusivity of Sam Kutesa to be solely the owner of Uganda Airlines. So when people say, oh, fly Uganda, pride of Uganda, it is not pride of Uganda. It is a privately owned entity. The logo of the Uganda flag or the crested crane is just to promote him. Like I said, Ugandans have had a scarf over their face for a very long time. A mask, in fact, over your faces. Nobody knew that Uganda Airlines was not a Ugandan airline. This is the truth here. All planned vehicle assembling plants is owned by Sam Kutesa. All transport for UN, especially UNHCR and World Food Program, is owned or controlled by Sam Kutesa. This makes sense to me because when the LRA war was happening, World Food Program would send a lot of food aid to Uganda, to northern Uganda. UNHCR would send a lot of help to northern Uganda. The UN, when they come to Uganda for any functions, they need transportation to get around. The truckloads of rice and lentils and beans and posho that went from different parts of the country, all transportation was is controlled by Sam Kutesa. All mobilization of the UNHCR, and they know how to cause a need for UNHCR, because with this Ebola thing, right? Just listen to this. This Ebola thing would have been the perfect scenario for Sam Kutesa and all of them to benefit, because why? They would come up with, a need for transportation, for medications, or the UN coming in to Uganda, to those areas where there's Ebola. They'd be sending aid, food or whatever. Sam Kutesa would be doing all the transportation of all this. I'm sure the times when they have like the UN having conferences in Uganda, Sam Kutesa controls all of that transportation. All water transportation is controlled by Sam Kutesa. All water transportation. All the ferries, they pay into Sam Kutesa's wallet. All air transport. So I'm sure the airlines that fly into Uganda may need to, have a leg completed. If Uganda Airlines may not go all the way to the Philippines, then they have a connecting flight and so on and so forth. Or the Philippine airline may come into Ethiopia, for example, and then Ethiopia, then Sam Kutesa's Uganda Airlines picks up from Ethiopia and brings them to Uganda. So Sam Kutesa is in charge of all air transportation, including the helicopters, which people sometimes will book for private flights, all those chartered airlines here and there. Sam Kutesa owns all of those and is in charge of those. I'm sure they pay for air trafficking, air control and trafficking. If airplanes are traveling, there has to be a place for communication about which tracks are being covered, or which, how the airspace is used and controlled. I'm sure it's all, pays into Sam Kutesa's wallet. All government motor vehicle procuring is owned by Sam Kutesa. All your vehicles which you send from abroad that go into the ports in Uganda, and you have to pay a tax sometimes that is equal to or more than the cost of the vehicle wherever you bought it from, all that money, the bonds, go into Sam Kutesa's wallet. All mobile money loans belong to Sam Kutesa and Salim Saleh. There are people, apparently there's a way you can borrow money on your mobile money and then pay back with some sort of interest. All that mobile money loan system is owned by Sam Kutesa and Salim Saleh. All petroleum reserves in Uganda are owned by Salim Saleh. That is why Salim Saleh is in northern Uganda. That is why Amuru land, it has the best quality oil in the world. We have the heaviest quality oil that has to be diluted so let's say you have a cup of Ugandan oil from that area of Amuru. Nuoya has tons of oil. The belt into Karuma Falls has tons of oil. In fact, they have dug a tunnel from Karuma into the ground all the way to South Sudan, so that while they rob from Sudan, they can bring some of that into the tunnel around Karuma and take it out. So they are using that channel underneath Karuma to export and to carry oil, because it's kind of heavy and it's high quality oil. They have to fumble on how to get the oil in and out or whatever they need to do with it. So they dug that thing there. The reason why Salim Saleh settled in northern Uganda, besides controlling, making sure there's no uprising there, is because of the massive amounts of oil discovered in Amuru, massive oil discovered in Nuoya. They don't even have a count at this point. Karuma Falls has banks and banks of oil. That is why that guy is settled there. That is why Salim Saleh's sister is pretending as if she's setting up a sugar factory in Apa, or around, in some part of Gulu, because underneath that soil, any part of northern Uganda or Uganda where there is some sort of discovery of exploration of oil, they have found a way to control it, buy the land, kill people, or send people away from the land. So Salim Saleh is the lead in that, and this makes sense because he has used people like Brigadier Tema to chase people forcefully from certain areas because of the detection. And remember, they already stipulated in this one of the documents that Ugandans should not be trained or education that has to do with exploration of oil should only be given to the Bahima. not Ugandans. So even if a Ugandan is sitting on oil, they'll never know, because they're not educated in that way, because they are what? Because they are unfairly eliminated from the process of getting educated, so that they can acquire the knowledge to even think about a discovery of or exploration of oil for their own sake. All motorcycles or Bajaj and spares are owned by Salim Saleh. So all of the inputs of motorcycles, even if I have a cousin who owns a motorcycle shop, a boda shop. But it does make sense, because they don't import them. They only buy them in bulk and then resell them. And it's no wonder the price goes like this every time. All the time. Okay? Eskom, I don't know what Eskom is. It's owned by Kutesa, Saleh, and Kataha. UEDCL, I don't know I think that has to do with electricity distribution. It's owned by Muhoozi. All petroleum products are owned by Muhoozi. All tires are owned by Muhoozi and Karujide. Uganda medical stores are owned by Muhoozi and Diana Museveni. You do know that there's a medical stores, I think, okay, I'm not sure. I won't speak about that. But now you know that all medical stores, Uganda medical stores, are owned by Muhoozi and Diana. Gold refining is owned by Muhoozi, Rwawogo, and Karujide. All Tiger Head batteries are owned by Karujide. All beef exportation is owned by Odrek Rwawogo. All beef exportation. This guy exports more than just beef. He actually exports internal organs of Ugandans that he extracts, whether they're alive or dead. Sometimes he doesn't wait to kill them. He just extracts their internal organs for sale on the black market. All airtime printing is owned by Charles Mbide. I don't know who that one is. All mobile money is owned by Bitature and Janet. How many of you have read Bitature's books about success? It's funny, but it's not funny. This is a guy who came up saying, being a motivational speaker and saying how hard he worked to become what he is, saying that all the wealth that he owns is his, and he did this, that, and the other. But come to realize, he was handed all this cash by Janet so that they can partner, and he does the work while she funds him, and they own the companies in shares. Every company that Bitature owns is owned by Janet also. He's not a solely achieved, successful guy. He was handed money to produce or to work. He's basically the slave of Janet, according to this relationship here in this Bahima thing. Anyway, so those are the business proxies. Okay? Next, I'm going to move into how they own these assets, how they own shares of assets in the different areas that we talked about. I'm just going to make a whole video with everything in there, because if I stop and come back, then I'll break it and maybe it's hard to catch up. So I'm going to move on to the M7 Century Dynasty Empire business and properties owned by proxies. This is where the business big name, you'll see like Ham Chigundo, Ham Towers or Cham Towers or whatever, and you think it's Hams. Or you see Sudir's, Munyonyo and this, that, and the other. Truly, these people are just, their names are used in partnership, but the true owners are the Bahima of these companies. So I'll go over all of them so that you can see how this happens. These are the companies owned by Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, or the shares thereof, of the company where he, of these companies, okay? First of all, Yoweri Kaguta Museveni owns 12 assets, or, hold on a second, my phone is actually dying. One moment. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to put this down here. If I can. If it turns off, please come back. It's not because I left. So I'm going to try to set this up here. Okay. All right, so these are the companies owned by Museveni. All Sudiru's wealth, 46% of Sudiru's wealth belongs to Museveni. In Uganda, in East Africa, in South Africa, in Europe, and America. Half of Sudiru's wealth, 46% of Sudiru's wealth is owned by Museveni. 72% of Karim Haji's wealth belongs to Museveni, with 10% left for Janet Museveni. So basically, this Haji guy Museveni owns 82%. Him and Janet own 82% of this Haji Maji's wealth. 44% of all Mukwano's wealth belongs to Museveni. You can see why he doesn't want to touch these foreign people sometimes. It's because he has a hand or he has a tie. All this Indian nonsense all of a sudden is because of Sudhir and him. But you'll also see other wealth in the future. 44% of all Mukwano's wealth belongs to Museveni. That is why Museveni does not want Indians to disappear. 67% of Bidco's wealth belongs to Museveni. 49% of Samona belongs to Museveni. 82% of Quality Chemicals belongs to Museveni. 70% of Aya Groups belongs to Museveni. 100% of J&M Hotel belongs to Museveni and Janet Kataha. 13% of Exim Bank shares belongs to Museveni, an equivalent of $8.6 billion, not shillings. 41% of Kakira Sugar Works belongs to Museveni. Yet again, another Indian. That is why he doesn't want Indians to leave. Pearl Dairy Farms belongs to Museveni 100%. GBK Group of Companies belongs to Museveni. Those are Museveni's companies. Next, I have Salim Saleh Akandwanaho's ownerships in Uganda. 66% of Mandela's wealth belongs to Salim Saleh, including City Oils and Java Cafes. Cafe Javas. 66% of Mandela's wealth belongs to Salim Saleh, including City Oils and Cafe Javas. 48% of Tata Motors belongs to Salim Saleh. 62% of Kinyara Sugar Works belongs to Salim Saleh. It is no wonder they have that idea of a sugar factory in Atiak, but coincidentally, Atiak also has oil. That is why him and his sister, Amina, they call her Amina something, are constantly rubbing shoulders with leaders of Acholi to try to get to have her company take off. But in the end, they are really just trying to own the land because there is oil underneath. Okay? 62% of Kinyara, okay, I talked about that. Okay, maybe not. 62% of Kinyara Sugar Works belongs to Salim Saleh. Sugar. So you see how that ends up being a thing of the Acholi area. Manson's Uganda Limited belongs to Salim Saleh. 66% of City Oil belongs to Salim Saleh. 38% of EcoBank belongs to Salim Saleh. That is why EcoBank is still existing in Uganda, because any other bank that is not foreign owned, that is Ugandan, has been shut down, especially the one of Chigundu, Greenland Bank, because it was owned by Ugandan. They made sure they stole it, they stole every asset there was, and took over that bank. Mogas Oils belongs to Salim Saleh. Heritage Coffee Company Limited. This is the company that steals coffee from the people very cheaply. This is the company that has workers like Katikiro Uganda that